南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会说菩萨。南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨。Homage to the Buddhas, Flower Garland Sutra of great expanded teachings, and the ocean-wide Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Together, 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持愿，皆如来真实义。The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that we've come to see and hold it within our sight and hearing, we vow to understand the Buddha's true and actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛。Venerable Master Dharma friends, 阿弥陀佛. Good evening and welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. I'm going to come down to the center of the hall and invite everyone, please, to turn around. We're going to drop the screen down and we can all look at the Avatamsaka Sutra together. 等一等，我就下来了。在万佛殿的中间那里坐，我们荧幕上都可以一起看到，一起读诵《大方广佛华严经》。How about that? So even though those of us here in the hall are going to be investigating the Avatamsaka Sutra because of the internet, we're also connected to about usually about 100, maybe 90 or 100 listeners in China, in Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Philippines, Indonesia, and also Australia, New Zealand. We also have a large community of Vietnamese listeners listening to a Vietnamese translation. Excuse me. Furthermore, this is going to be streamed out to YouTube. So my point is, although we're sitting here in the city of 10,000 Buddhas, 10,000 Buddhas Hall, this lecture now is able to go out to the whole world. 就说虽然各位在王府殿这里做了精听佛法、研究《华严经》，同时呢，因为网络因为突击的关系，我们今天晚上《华严经》这个讲解是经过翻译到了中国、台湾、香港、马来西亚、新加坡、菲律宾、印尼，还有越南的翻译。另外呢，我们就接连一个 YouTube， 所以大家以后也可以看。So to get going, let's put our palms together and invite the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to draw near. 我们就殷请阿颜海会佛菩萨，修殷请祝福各位。We want to recite in Chinese 7 times. Here we go. 南无大方广佛阿愿经，华严海会佛菩萨，南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨，南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨，南无大方广佛华严经，华严海菩萨，南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨，南大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨。Last time, 南无大方华严经，华严海会佛菩萨。Furthermore, the Pomo people practice their spiritual connections to the earth and all creation here on their ancestral land for tens of thousands of years, long before we got here. Today, we acknowledge them as traditional custodians and original storytellers of these lands. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 同谋人在他们祖先的土地上，万物精神演戏已有数万。今天我们承认对这些土地的传统建物的和原始讲故事的人，并且向他们获取现在新性别方面的信义，以及主权是为所有第一民族人民们表示敬意。This is for Australia. This is for Berkeley. And we have added traditional bell song. Shifu taught us to do this before lectures. And we kind of left it behind. We forgot to do it for many years. Then we were reminded that this is traditional for a starting Sutra lecture. So we added it back. In translation, 这个中生机传统以来， 我们天台教官呢，讲经之前来要有这个中生机，或用传统的方法来听起来，庄严的哦，真的啊，就我不会唱，我没有那种学问。如果我听过这个真实的方法，哦，好听好听。师傅很早以前说讲经之前一定要这个众成机，然后他叫我们以前的恒隐比丘尼不是恒阴是以前的恒隐，叫他谱一个曲子，所以我们就这个我们可以以后我要用这个传统的中文学会。Goes like this. The bells sound wide resounds throughout 100,000,000 worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, that's the bell song. Very nice. We will learn how to do that. All right. You can see by my desktop that today we had big business in the Dharma. Today we had the conclusion of one of the most important karma vachana proceedings in the entire Mahayana Buddhist world from the Buddha's time. And it was the transmission of the Bhikshuni and the Bodhisattva precepts. So one of the events tonight on our program will be my talking a little bit about how important this was. 今天我们就做佛事，不是单单一年，就在汉传佛教这个范围之内，这个传戒的三坛具足大戒，这是最隆重。有人就说不是水陆空法会更隆重，水陆空法会更长，不见得更隆重。为什么？因为有新的比丘比丘尼来做天人师表，那个是就说超过三界这个是好消息。何况魔王知道你是大江湖法，你是大比丘尼法，是大比丘尼他的宫殿就动，所以那个水陆空他不在。所以这是很重要的事情。今天法喜充满，功德圆满，所以等一等，我们就会讲几句。So we'll have that on the program later. But the important thing to bring forward right now is the Avatamsaka Sutra. And here we are. Now, I have to tell everyone where we are in our sutra, since the last time I was. There will be another sutra lecture tomorrow night, which is the 10 transferences. We've been explaining that for a long time. But this is, for me, the first time here in Wat Pho Dien to explain the Wu Fa Jie Pi. This is, here it is right there. 大方广佛华严经入法界品第三十九品。So I'm very happy to be able to, with all of you, look into our Wu Fa Jie Pi tonight. So here we go. This is the entree. This is the main course of our banquet tonight, the Avatamsaka Sutra. It is the chapter 39 called Entering the Dharma Realm. And I've never been able to, this is the first time I've had the chance to explain it here at Wat Pho Dien. Tomorrow night, we have another sutra, another chapter of the same sutra called the 10 transferences, 10 dedications. So if people like what they heard tonight, please do come back tomorrow night for more of the same. Different chapter, different part of the sutra. So now, what's going on here? Let me tell you a little bit about it. Okay, now the Avatamsaka Sutra.
我那边有了，我自己
It's all the different methods. We hear about the 6 paramitas and the 10,000 practices. Well, in the first 38 chapters, we get those in detail. Equally important, we get Samantabhadra, Rushen Pusa's 10 practices. So that's the first part. But there's another part of the sutra, which is actually 1/4 of it in length. And that is a story about a young man who comes forward to take all of those instructions and put them into practice. So we have theory, we have practice. We have the li, then we have the shi, the principles, and then the actual engagement of those principles in real life. And what is his name? Everybody knows. In English, his name is Sudana. Correct. We've got 5 points over here. Sudana, just like our Sudana Center. In Chinese, it means good wealth, or good and wealthy, or auspicious and full of goodness, Shanzai. And somehow he has become, through art, he's become this little boy, looking like a little child, actually with braids on his head. You see him with the dragon girl around Guanyin. Well, that's not the real Sudana. People need to know that. The real Sudana looks like these. We don't have young men here. We have one elderly, one older man. We need young men. Okay, here we go. These over here. We've got Jin Fan Shi, Jin Xiao Shi, Jin Chuan Shi, Jin Wei Shi. Looks like him. He looks like them. Sudana comes out in the sutra, and he's tall, and he's strong, and he's pure, and he's very full of blessings. Manjushri looks at him and says, "You are a Zai Fa Qi. You're a vessel complete with the Dharma." And so Sudana is picked out as someone who can become a Buddha in one lifetime. He goes to visit 53 teachers. Manjushri sends him on, and Sudana sends him on. That whole story, all the way to success, is chapter 39. That's the second part of the Avatamsaka. In terms of literary criticism, if people are scholarly, this is an epic. It's an epic story because Sudana sets out on a journey. He gets instructions. He actually gets wounded several times. He has emotional experiences. He gets frightened. He gets encouraged. He gets taught. And he learns how to walk the Bodhisattva path. He returns back home successfully. It's epic. It's Mahayana Buddhism's epic. 华严经可以说分2部分，第一部分呢，就第1品到第38品，就是前半部。然后呢，第2个部分呢，是如果用长短来讲，是华严经1/4。那么长1品39品。那为什么这样分别呢？有什么不同呢？可以这样讲，可以说第1品到第38品，离世间品，那个是如何修菩萨道的理论。在那38品里边呢，进到6度万行，那么多修行的方法。那么当然呢，有普贤菩萨10大愿望在内，非常重要，都是理论。告诉我们，如果你要修菩萨道，这是应该最理想，就是这个榜样啊，这是模范。然后呢，第2个部分是什么？是1品39品，叫入法界。入法界品有什么不同呢？有一个人出来了，就把以上 就说38品里边那些修行的方法，把它们实行起来啊，他就真的就身体力行，跟着啊所有的大善知识的教诲，他就一个一个学会，一生成班，在一生命，他这个12年修行，他就成佛。不过奇怪哈，有人就说哦，那个素的呢，那个善财童子啊，等等。有人就说哦，那个小孩子，那个 baby 哈，let's see here，student，对，是这个人，因为艺术的关系呢，上菜从此变成像这样子，像一个小孩子，是不是？头上几个鞭子，他为什么变那么小？可能像什么呢？像玄奘大师啊，变成《西游记》里边一个笑话，Tripitaka 啊，是不是？想不到《西游记》那个明朝吴承恩写的小说，他把真正的玄奘大师就变成一个好像就是无能为力的一个法师。那么上菜童子，你看一个小孩子，他不是这样子。在《华严经》里边的上菜童子，他就像这些法师啊，就身体长得高啊，有福气啊，就强壮啊，有这一种就说非常能干的一个年轻人，一个童子。文殊师利菩萨看到他说，这是一个灾反气，他可以成佛。所以呢，奇怪，有这2个上菜童子，有《华严经》里面的上菜童子，还有那个艺术界的画出来的那个小孩子。那么我们当然跟着《华严经》的解释上菜童子。Now, what's interesting is that we have these two versions of Suda, right? One is the little baby, we just saw his picture, and the other is this strapping, strong, powerful, pure young man. A Tongzi means somebody who has all of his fundamental energy still with him, not like this little kid. So this is the power of art to carry images into kind of public awareness. There's another example in Buddhism just like that, which is what? Xuanzang Dashi. We're going to hear about him tonight. He was a great hero. He was a pilgrim. He went on foot to India and back. He was extremely capable, powerful Buddhist monk. But in the Ming Dynasty, he became a character in a novel.
Called Monkey. And in Monkey, he's just this kind of hapless guy, has to be saved by the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, over and over again. So somehow Buddhism contributes these symbols to public awareness, to consciousness, and they get distorted in the meantime. Okay, now it's a So page chapter 39, here we are. This is the ninth Avatamsaka assembly. The Buddha is going to speak Dharma. He sends out a light. He notifies all the Bodhisattvas from all directions that he's going to talk about the Avatamsaka teachings. Oh, they get so excited. They all fly in from all different worlds. Now, this is Avatamsaka Dharma, so we have to listen to it without judgment, right? Without criticism. So they all fly in. They see the Buddha sitting there in the jade grove. They make offerings. They praise him, each one by one. Then they sit off to one direction, north, south, east, west, intermediate directions above and below, and prepare to hear the Dharma. That's part one. Now, we're in part two tonight. And in part two, the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and the Buddha are talking about the qualities of these bodhisattvas. We get to hear what they're like. What are real bodhisattvas in the Avatamsaka Sutra like? How do they think? How do they talk? How do they cultivate? What do they do on a daily basis? And the sutra tells us, it's really detailed. We find out a lot about bodhisattvas, and it gives us an opportunity to look at our own behavior and think, how can I move slowly, bit by bit, closer to the actual mind and spirit and words and bodies of bodhisattvas? 好了，到了这个39品佛在释多林，他就知道这个讲华严经入法界品的时间，将那个法的时间到了，所以呢，他就放光明，统治所有十方一切的菩萨他们都来了，他们很想听佛讲法，所以呢，他们就飞过来了，从各世界各佛刹就来了，到了释多林，他们个个都供养佛，然后呢就赞叹一个一个就讲一些偈颂，就坐到一边解跏趺坐，等待佛讲法那是这个第39品的第一部分我们已经讲过。现在呢，已经讲到第二部分，我们等文殊师利菩萨下来文殊菩萨下来，哇，那个就事情就很有意思OK，so 现在是我们要讲解什么叫菩萨，他们的每天的这个生活是怎么样他们怎么样修行他们有什么三昧，他们有什么辩才，他们有什么神通，现在很清楚讲。那我们听到了，我们可以反省一下，那我的生活，我的生命当中，哪一方面可以接近菩萨的真正菩萨的行为可以把这个经典跟我们就交流这样子。Okay，that's where we are. Are we ready, everybody? Here we go. Let's take a look. This is where we left off last time. Right there. Okay, I would like everybody please to put your palms together. I will give you a line and you give it back. 请各位合掌，我念一句，大家跟着念一句，好了，看得到吗？够大吗？来，清楚吗？清楚。好 ，Let's grab this. I think I moved it. 哎呀 ，Hold on, make it bigger. Just a moment. Come on. Oh, let's see. We're on page various understandings. Move it. Let's see here. Thus everybody. Okay. Now, I want to get it big enough so everybody can see. There we go. Okay, here we go. 如此会语中，菩萨大众见欲如是，诸佛如来，神身三昧，大神统力，如是尽法界，东西南北，四位上下， 一切放海中，意欲众生，心想而入。There you go. Okay, now let's read it together. And when we read together, punctuation is our friend. You see this comma? That means pause. We can breathe at the comma. This white space here, that gives us breathing chance. Okay, here's a comma, we breathe, west, south, north, like that. That way, we really can we can recite together different mouths in a single sound. Okay, ready? Thus, everybody in the great assemblies of Bodhisattvas beheld the Buddha's thus come ones most profound samadhis and the power of his spiritual abilities. To the end of the Dharma realm, in the realm of space, to the east, west, north, to the four intermediate directions, above and below, throughout all directions, ocean-wide vastness, they stayed in accord with being's thoughts. Okay. So, everybody in the Great Assembly watched the Buddha. The Buddha entered Samadhi, released light. Amazing to watch. And the power of his ability. And then it says, if you really think about it, to the end of the Dharma realm, you could say the universe is the realm of space, and then in front of us, to our right, behind us, to the left, above, below, and in between, in all directions. Is it talking about the Buddha or is it talking about the Bodhisattvas? I think it's the same. Okay, the subject is the Pusa Dazhong, right? These are the ones who stayed in touch. Let's take a look at this. What does this mean? Look at this. It says, relying, depending on living beings, 众生心想 mind thoughts 而住 here's the verb abide, stay, rest, live 你住在哪里我住在这里我住在外国处so where do you live? So look at this. Bodhisattvas live on living beings' thoughts. This is another verb, to rely on, to count on, to depend on. And then it says they live there. While what? While they are contemplating the Buddha. What does that mean? What in the world does that mean? 就说你看就说他们观想佛入上面，然后呢，他现身通就准备讲法，然后呢，下一句就说继续空边法界，东西南北四维上下，就说前边、后边、左边、右边、中间、上边、下边，他们就在那里，意于众生心想而住。应该说动词是住，还有依。那么你依什么住呢？我依居士们供养而住我依我的愿力而行也可以我依国家的法律而住，对不对？可是呢，他们依于众生的心想而住。那菩萨这是什么意思？ So this is really interesting. It's what do most people, before they cultivate, what do they, let's go over here. They stayed in accord with, that's our translator translated it to stay in accord with living beings' thoughts. That's one way to translate it, but I don't think that catches it exactly. What do most people stay in accordance with, to abide, to live And the answer is money, money, all day long, more and more and more, money, 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 money. And sometimes food, especially if you live in Taiwan. Food, of course, good food, vegetarian food. So, you know, that's desire. Most people pursue money, and it's never far from their thoughts. So look at bodhisattvas. Not only are they not interested in adding anything to themselves, they are completely tuned in to what we are thinking. Now, why would that be? It's because if you think of what a bodhisattva is, practices and vows. And the vows say, I have to wait. I'm going to wait until living beings are all taken across before I go to Buddhahood, right? Just think of Aristotle Bodhisattva's vows, for example. And so I have to know what living beings are thinking so that I can take them across as soon as possible, or else I myself will never ever get there. So this is one reason to explain why they stay in accord with people's thoughts, so they can figure out how to stay one step ahead of us and move us towards Bodhi, move us towards our own liberation. Right? So think about this. How unselfish is a bodhisattva? They not only don't care about money and food and wealth, sex, fame, food, and sleep, they are tuned into us, our needs, and our fears, and our hang-ups, and our depressions, and our attachments. They're super aware of them, and they're completely willing to help us get past them if we are only able to put up some sustained strength to change our mistakes. So how interesting, right? What an insight into where bodhisattvas really are. 为什么菩萨意欲众生心想而入呢？因为我们说菩萨菩萨怎么成的呢？可以说因为横门还有愿力，横愿就成菩萨。菩萨的愿力呢，就说他们真正的菩萨愿意在后边来，对不对？他们就把他们已经发心要度的众生后边而成佛，所以呢，他们不愿意浪费时间度众生。如果知道某某众生在那儿想什么了，哎呦，他们度他们的时间会短一点、快一点，不必就踩一踩，就不知道这个众生想什么。他们一清一楚，怎么样不自私？他们不在那儿专门想钱，或者食物或者恩爱，他们不是一天到晚把时间放在那些东西的就总欲不会，已经看破放下了。现在专心知道他们要度的众生的思想在哪，想什么 ，right？ So 你看菩萨怎么这么不自私不自利？哇！ So how interesting, right? They depend upon living beings' thoughts. That's where they stay. That's where they grow. Okay. So I told a story not long ago about how Master Hua, do people know Bob Wilson? Gufa was a significant member of our community. And that's the one I want. Okay. Just a moment. Okay, hold on. Don't go away. Hey, so Bob had a sweet tooth, and anyone who ever worked with Bob knew that he, before he went to work, he would buy jelly donuts at the local bakery and then go to work eating jelly donuts. He really liked jelly donuts. I worked with Bob, and I got to like jelly donuts too. So one day we were going to the Washington Street, which is where the Pachunis lived. And it was a Sunday, and Shifu was going to he did a visit every week. And so that day, someone had made an offering for lunch at Gold Mountain, but the offering came in too late to serve. We were already pretty much finished with lunch when the offering came in. What was it? It was a box of 12 jelly donuts. Oh boy. I mean, big, fat jelly donuts, all different flavors. And so we looked at that box of donuts and thought of, wow, yeah. So we're heading over to Washington Street, and Shifu says, "Ova, 你好好看门口啊，不要动了啊，不要让人家把门给丢了啊，好好看门口啊，好吧，我法。" Gofa says, "Okay, Shifu, okay." Shifu says, "Gofa, watch the door. We're going to go, you watch the door. Don't let anybody steal it." He said, "Do a good job." So Gofa says, "Okay, Shifu, okay." So we get in the car, we drive to Washington Street, and this is where the nuns live, and we're listening to Shifu explain. I think he was explaining the Yao Xin Fu, I think at the time, the book on the nature of medicine. Or it might have been the Da Cheng Qi Xin Lun, one of the commentaries, The Awakening of Faith in the Mind. So halfway through the lecture, right, we've been sitting there for about 40 minutes. Shifu suddenly gets down off the seat and walks into the office at Washington Street and makes a phone call. We can hear him dialing. It was a dial phone, right? Tick, 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 like that. He dialed. And then we heard, Shifu turns around, hangs up, comes back with a smile on his face, gets back on the seat, continues to lecture. So we're like, oh, that's unusual. So there's another 20 minutes. Shifu gets down off the seat, goes into the office, makes another phone call. And we're like, whoa, what's going on? So Shifu comes back up, big smile, finishes the lecture, and we get in the station wagon and the van, and we drive back to Gold Mountain. And we come in the door of Gold Mountain, and here is Gofa. And he looks at Shifu, and he starts to bow. He bows, and he's covered with sweat. He's all white as a sheet, covered in sweat, and he's bowing to Shifu. And Shifu says, "Gofa, 怎么样啊?" He says. Gofa says, Shifu, you can read my mind. And Shifu says, "Of course I can read your mind. How else could I teach you?" He said. Right? And then walks away with a smile. And we're like, what? What's going on? So Shifu goes upstairs. And we all gather around. Gofa, what happened? What's going on? Why are you so upset? Gofa says, well, he says, I was sitting there beside the door, watching the door, and you know those jelly donuts that came in? He said, they started to talk to me. And they were calling my name. And I heard it. And I was sitting there and I thought, no, I can't, no, there's no jelly donuts talking. No. Besides, I gotta watch the door. And those aren't an offering to me, those offered to the Sangha. And so I'm sitting there, and he says, but then those donuts started really getting to me. And I could smell them sitting there I could smell them. And I was just about to uncross my legs and go into the kitchen, and the phone rang. And you know who it was? And we said, Was it Shifu? He said, yeah, Shifu. And you know what Shifu said? He said, Wafa, how are you doing? Watching the. And I was like, oh, whew, thanks for calling, Shifu. You know, yeah, I'm watching the door, Shifu. I'm really glad you called. And Shifu said, okay, do a good job. Hung up. And then I went back to meditating. And he said, my gosh, it was just a few minutes later. And he said, I just had this craving. I knew I had to eat some of those jelly donuts. Some of them were mine. And I got down off the bench and I was walking in the kitchen and the phone rang. And it was Shifu. And Shifu said, hey, Gufa, how you doing? 怎么样呢? And I said, Shifu, this is really hard. It's really hard, Shifu. Shifu said, of course it's hard. If it was easy, anybody could do it. Try your best, he said. And Gufa said, at that point, I just went into the Buddha hall and just started to bow. And I've been bowing until you came back, he said. So that's the story. And when you think about 一切放海中，亦与众生心想而住。Bodhisattvas in all directions, ocean-wide vastness, stay in accord with being thoughts. That's interesting, isn't it? 就简单帮我给我自己翻译，就说有个居士就在万佛城，就在金山寺以后换到万佛城，叫国法。国法呢，他很爱吃甜的东西，我们所谓 sweet tooth， 甜的牙齿，他的口味，他最喜欢甜的东西。每天上班一定要吃3个jelly donuts， 就是最甜的这个甜品每天这样子。有一天星期天，我们准备吃完了饭就去那个怡经院就是女众的道场在华盛顿街那我们中饭快吃完了，有人来供养一个盒子，粉红色，从 bakery 烤面包厂来了，是什么？打开12个 jelly donuts， 就是国法最放不下、最喜欢吃的。然后呢，师傅就说：“哎，国法，你留下来，好好看门口。我们去那里听经，你看门口，保护道场拥护道场。OK， 师傅 ，OK， 好。然后我们就去了。师傅在讲经当中就不知道为什么就下法座到办公室里去打电话，我们也听不到讲什么，他就回来就微笑又上法座。”讲了什么又下来，就到了办公室里边就打电话，我们也听不到回来了就满面大笑，然后讲完了我们就上车回来了，回来旧金山呢国法在那儿满身大汗流汗，皮肤白白的，在那儿叩头向师傅就礼佛叩头拜，拼命拜。然后师傅就说：“佛法怎么样啊？”他说：“师傅，你 you can read my mind。”他说：“你知道我心里想什么？”上人就说：“当然了，如果不知道你在心里想什么，我怎么会度你？”我这样子就上楼梯。我们就说佛法怎么样？这是什么回事？他说我在那看门口那个 jelly donut 开始叫我的名字，我几乎下那个长灯就到厨房去了，我就忍不住电话在响是师傅，他说你知道谁打电话？师傅打电话说佛法怎么样啊？没事，师傅好，你好好看门口然后呢，他说我在做。然后没有多少时间呢，哇，那个 jelly donut 知道那个 jelly donut 写的只有我的名字在那儿，就写了，我就要跑过去吃2-3个，知道是供养僧团没有关系的，我都要吃了电话在响佛法怎么样师傅很难，他说，当然是很难，如果不难，人人都会修行，修行就是不容易的。try your best， 他说英文 try your best。然后国法说，从第2个电话 开始他就到佛前在那里礼佛，拜到我们回来，然后就说师父 ，You can read my mind。师父说，当然，如果我不会依你的心想而住呢，怎么会对你啊？所以这个故事我就 I thought of that just the other day. Good story. Okay, moving on here. Next, are we ready? Here we go. Ready, everybody? 是从前即知尽现在，一切国度生，一切众生生，一切虚空道，其中一义矛断两处，一义各有伪称数差，种种一起，次第而住。等一等 ，OK, hold it, wait. We will go down to Egypt or Jew. Okay, within the Bodhisattva. We'll do one more. Okay, from 稀有来，稀有道场各菩萨会，皆以如是见佛省力，不坏三世，不坏世间，于一切众生心中现其影像，随一切众生心要出妙言因。等一等 ，OK, we'll stop right there at voices. Okay, here we go. Okay, are we ready? We're going to read together, watch the punctuation, and breathe. Ready? Here we go. From the boundaries of the past through to the present, within all countries' bodies, within all living beings' bodies, in space, down to each and every hair tip, were kshetras as numerous as dust particles, which arose from karma that was unique to each. Within all of those bodhimandas were bodhisattvas' assemblies, who also saw the Buddhas, spiritual powers that were indestructible throughout the dimensions of space and time. They projected their own images in the minds of beings according to the heart's delights of those beings. They spoke fine words with wondrous voices. Oh my goodness. How wonderful is this? Okay, so now let me remind you, these are bodhisattvas sitting in the Jada Grove, waiting for the Buddha to explain the Rufa-Jika teachings in written down the realm. And this is all preliminary. This is all preparation for the Fa Hui to begin. And they've all given their praises. And now the Buddha is sending out psychic powers. He's showing them what he is capable of, getting them ready to enter samadhi, so that when they hear him speak the Rufa-Jika Dharma, they will be able to get the most from it, understand it, take it home to where they have living beings to teach and transform. These bodhisattvas are still in school. They're still learning how to teach and transform. So how to be good teachers of the Dharma. So everything the Buddha says, they really want to absorb it, because they need every bit of tools, every tool in the toolkit to come home and teach living beings. When this is all over, they go back to their own lands and teach. So look at this. They go beyond time. They go beyond space. They go beyond big and small interpenetrate. This is the quality of the Avatamsaka. And they saw this Sanskrit word kshetras. They saw Buddha lands. So there's this amazing quality in the Avatamsaka where you can look into something tiny and see something huge in great detail. Kshetra is like a Buddha land. You could think Amitabha's land of ultimate bliss, for example. Medicine Buddha's land of pure crystal light, lapis lazuli light. They saw all these Buddha lands, and each of them was different because of the karma of the people who lived there. Now, the sutra takes us into those lands. There are monasteries like City of 10,000 Buddhas, where bodhisattvas are, and they saw Buddha's spiritual powers passing through space and time. Then they took a picture of themselves and put it in the minds of living beings in a way that would make them happy. They spoke fine words with wondrous voices. Oh, look at that. This is pretty astonishing, you could say. How do bodhisattvas teach us? Let's say we are in a situation of temptation. Ooh, we know we shouldn't, but we still want to. Jelly donuts, for example, right? Or whatever, you know that you have a certain amount of time to finish a job, but there's that beautiful picture book that you wanted to read before you wanted to read it. You saw it and you thought, that's really like to look at these beautiful photographs. And you think, well, if I do that, I'm not going to be finished with my job in time. Somebody will be disappointed. And you think, yeah, I promised when I took the precepts there on the platform that I would be vigorous. Okay, so I'll come back some other time. The picture book will still be here. Let me get to work. Right? And so in your mind, you have this, oh, that's right. When I took the precepts, I made these promises. That's what's a similar thing here. You get an image in your mind of something wholesome, something you trust, something you believe in, something you want to be like. You want to grow into that image. And so you go towards the good and save so much trouble. Right? And that's how bodhisattvas teach. Who else teaches this way? Parents. Who else? Teachers. Teachers have their students in the classroom and in the hallway and in the cars and the vehicles and in the lunchroom and in the bathroom. And they model how to be better people. And so kids are growing all the time. They've got this hormonal energy that makes their bodies new and different every morning, different every night. And they don't know, they blow with the wind until a teacher says, do this. Here's how you do it. Here's how you solve this problem and go towards the good and be unselfish. And if the kid pays attention and the teacher is skillful, they grow up thinking that's how it's done. So that's what teachers do to protect their images in the minds of their students. Bodhisattvas do the same thing in the minds of their beings. So, question, how important are good spiritual friends? Right? The nun just told the Buddha said 100% of the path is exactly because of this. When we have a problem, something we need to solve, something we have to make a decision on the spot, whose image do we follow? The good one, or the bad one, or none of them? We don't have an image. We just follow desire. The Bodhisattva is so skillful, he can appear in a way that makes the living being really happy and satisfied. And furthermore, they can teach in sound. 十方真教体清净在英文. Right? So they can use wondrous voices to teach us how to behave. I know there are a lot of people who say, oh, Shifu comes to me in my dreams. Anybody here have Shifu come in your dreams? If so, maybe. That's nice. But I never dream of Shifu. It's funny. I hear Shifu in my ear, mostly scolding. Yeah. 怎么搞的？怎么这么子？还没有放？你的火箭这么重？ Shifu talks to me and scolds me in Chinese in my ear. I don't see him, but I hear him a lot. And I know that sound, and I know when I hear it, it's because I'm about to make a decision that matters. And if I didn't have memory of Shifu putting me on the right track, I would probably go alone. I spent 18 years sitting under Shifu's Dharma seat translating for him. So I know that sound. So look at how Bodhisattvas teach. So for the young nuns and the young monks here, how important to stay with our Sangha models, to absorb as much of their insight and their wisdom as you can, so that when we have decisions to make, we see something in our minds, oh yeah, I want to follow that example, because it will not lead me wrong. It will take me to the right place. You think of here we are. It's one of the functions of the Sanshi Qijang, the 3 masters and 7 certifiers, in this case 8 certifiers. Although the time we're together is brief, you can remember, they say, lift your head and see the face of your good advisors. And the function is there so that you remember, right, 422 precept years in this front row. Those of you listening online, maybe don't know what this is about, but here at City of 10,000 Buddhas, we just had an ordination of the Bhikshuni precepts and the Bodhisattva precepts for left-hand people. And for the masters and certifiers, we added up all of the years they had been monastics, and we got to 422. If you look at Bhante Shila Vimala, he's 58. And if you look at his companion, Bhante Piyananda, he's 53. So that's over 100 precept years in 2 men, 2 bhikshus. So just remarkable. And this is also, those of you looking at this photograph, if you can see it, this is historic, because our teacher said the traditional way that Buddhists split up the body of Buddhism is a mistake and needs to be fixed. And so he invited Theravada bhikkhus to come and join the ordination. This is number 15. And this was not done anywhere else. So we're proud of that. Here is monks representing Thailand, Vietnam, Thailand, Sri Lanka, USA, Australia, USA, Sri Lanka, Korea, Hong Kong, and USA. Yeah, and I guess you could say Taiwan and China are in here too. So how wonderful is that? 就说知道菩萨，他就在众生的心里边现一个影子，一个样子啊。他怎么说呢？就说欲一切众生心中现其影像啊，随一切众生心要出妙原因，这是教化众生的很奇妙的方法。真正的菩萨，他们能把自己作为一个好的榜样，就现在众生的心里面不但就说心目中可以看到，而且声音都可以听到。哇，这种商场和变法太微妙是不是有的人就说他们会梦到师父，梦中你睡醒了就不记得了我也梦不到师父，很少上了涅槃之后很少看到，但是会听到声音在耳边给我指在因为18年在他法座下做翻译的工作，所以有机会听到声音。现在快要走错路的时候，会听到师父的声音，怎么搞的？说果然这样子。所以呢听多了你们都听你的善知识的教导。我们为什么常常我的录音带呢？一样的作用，一样的多听多接近善知识。所以呢，阿难问佛陀，这个接近善知识是说是 修到了一半佛陀就说不是，是修到了100分，接近真正神知识，也是这个作用。你看，有心理、有善知识的影像，告诉你应该不应该怎么做呢？那就避免很多问题是不是？所以呢，这点各位，你们有眼前有善知识，就是你每天不是说那个图像，我们跟那个37正的时间解除的时间短短的，不过都有一个因子我就说你们每天有那个长老的比前辈、比丘尼们比丘们在跟前，或者就说有父母在家里或者老师在家里，老师教导学生告诉他们怎么做，不但告诉他们，而且以身作则，先一个榜样因为学生就像孩子一样的，看父母不是单单父母教他们的时候，父母不教他们的时候，孩子在那儿很仔细的看是不是真的行为是不是可靠的然后他们才决定老师或者父母是好的榜样所以呢，我们知道父母汤山活佛就说老师们呢在学校里边呢，或者道场的前辈的比丘尼们我们应该常常就跟随他们，接近他们，供养他们，这样子就到时候我们要决定怎么做呢？他们的影像都会现前，甚至于声音都会听到那就不会走错路Okay, so there we go. Now, let's see here. We've got just a few minutes. Wow, time goes so fast. Because of 2 languages, that's why. I wanted to, so what I prepared, this is what I prepared, was I was going to bring forward what? Our biography of Master Xuanzang. I've been telling these stories now. These are wonderful stories of our Han Chuan Jiao hero, our Chinese Buddhist tradition hero, Master Xuanzang. People know about him, but probably haven't heard his detailed story. And I think what I'll do, let's do this. I would like to also say a few words to our new bhikshu down to the human realm and pick out the Sutta and start him on his journey. So we really want to be there when Shanghai Tongzi goes south to meet all of his good and wise advisors. So that's it's a big chapter we're lecturing on, but it's really wonderful Dharma. Avatamsaka Sutra. 希望各位每个星期六有机会就听听这个入法界品的讲座或者呢，如果星期六晚上没时间，以后在 YouTube 可以看到。这个是什么呢？文殊师利菩萨快下来人间，就任命这个任命这个谁这个上海童子他要出来了。然后他就开始向南边走求善知识所以那个是大方广佛华严经一个非常值得大家听听的这个注意Okay, so that's coming up. All right, here we go. Are we ready? You can also study some Chinese here. This is really good. Okay, we actually read this a few weeks ago, but it's a great part of the story. Take a look at what you can read here. Okay. 既至一物，持一寺，寺有安僧3人，中有一老者，以不取代，选足，出隐，泡华， 是报法是哭，就说爱好哽咽不能已言，其今日重见乡人，法师一对之，汤苦汤气，自外胡生，胡王西来参谒，王卿借所居，备称供养，时高昌王具文泰诗人，现在一物，是日欲患，世风法师跪告齐王，王问即日发使，敕夷吾王牵法师来，任肩上马数十匹，see here，前跪称居陀而设顿迎后啊。Okay, difficult Chinese, huh? Worth it though, really, really worth it. Here we go. Upon his arrival in Yiwu, he stayed in the monastery in which lived 3 monks upon descent. The senior one was so excited that he forgot to dress himself properly, and he came out barefooted to receive the master, whom he embraced while crying piteously without restraint. He said, I never expected to have this opportunity to see a countryman again. The master also shed tears of sympathy for him. The monks and the king of the Hu tribe came to pay their respects, and the king invited him to his residence and entertained him with all kinds of offerings. Okay, let me tell you what's going on here. Master Xuanzang has just crossed the desert. He crossed the Taklamakan Desert, also known as the Ocean of Sand, and nobody crosses it. Everything dies that tries to set out across it. Too many days without water? Well, he found water, saved his life, and he and this old horse, he's traveling with an old horse, they made it to the country of Yiwu. And these 3 Chinese monks who somehow got stranded in Yiwu figured nobody was ever coming from China across that desert. Well, here comes Master Xuanzang. So like this guy, this old monk, comes running out without his shoes on, buckling up his robe, and he hugs him and cries, and Master Xuanzang cries as well to say, wow, suddenly it's like seeing old home week. Now, the local tribe, the king of the local tribe, kind of just a neighborhood tribe, come out to see Master Xuanzang and invite him back to his house and makes all kinds of offerings. Now, here's where things get really interesting. An envoy had been sent previously to Yiwu by Qu Wentai, the king of Gaochang. This is a big king. And he had just sent a messenger there by chance, completely coincidence. On that day, he was supposed to go back and had the chance to meet the master. So on his return, he told the king of Gaochang, oh boy, there's a monk over there in Yiwu. Upon hearing the news, the king immediately dispatched an envoy to request that the small king of Yiwu send the master to him, and you don't say no to Gaochang king. At the same time, he selected several tens of his best horses. He appointed a high-ranking minister, provided with a herd of camels to set up rest houses along the way for the reception of the master. After 10 days, the envoy arrived and conveyed the king's invitation and salutation with much sincerity. Oh my goodness. So this is the prelude to something that is about to happen. For the people who may not get a chance to hear how this particular episode comes out, the Gaochang king, who is probably no one his whole life has ever told him no, he decides that he wants to keep Master Xuanzang. He decides that, oh, this is my best monk, I want you to stay. And so he's there with his sister as well. And so Master Xuanzang says, you know what? He says, I got to get to India. I made a vow to bring the sutras back to China. The Gaochang king says, nope, you're going to stay with me. Master Xuanzang says, I'm sorry, I hate to say no to the king, but no, you can't, I gotta go. So the king says, I have ways to make you stay, he said. So Master Xuanzang stops eating. He just fasts. And after 3 or 4 or 5 days, he's too weak to lift his head up. And the king of Gaochang says, all right, but you have to come back and speak Dharma. I don't want you to die because of me. So Master Xuanzang is able to cross over the king simply by being true to his original vows. 如果明天如果没有机会再听这个故事的话，那个高昌王是大的，有大势力的王，他那个夷吾王是小的。高昌王说，叫那个法师来了，那玄奘来了，那个高昌王他喜欢他，就说你要留下来，就给我做我的朝廷的法师。玄奘大师就说，你不行，我一定要去印度，把经典带回来。这个高昌王说不行，不行，一定要留下来。没有人对他说不要从来没听过那个字。玄奘大师说不要不要走。那个高昌王说，我有方法令你听话。玄奘大师就绝食不吃饭，3、4、5天呢就很虚弱。这个高昌王OK， 不过你一定要回来给我讲这样子。所以玄奘大师又度2个国王。他的去印度取经刚刚开始，已经有这种的就说新菩萨道的这个大力量。So Master Xuanzang has only been on his pilgrimage for a couple of weeks, and he's already collecting disciples and teaching living beings. What an amazing monk. Okay, I understand tomorrow we will not be having a lecture because we have a special teaching tomorrow. But next Sunday online, we will continue with the 10 dedications and more stories of Master Xuanzang. 好，我们明天晚上因为有特别的法会，所以呢讲法没有这个讲经法会下个星期天就在网络呢CTDB Live， 我们都继续研究释慧上品，还有玄奘大师的故事。阿弥陀佛。Every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.